The Dagda, also known in Old Irish as Indagda and in Irish as Andagda, is considered the great god of Irish mythology. He is the chief god of the Tuatha De Danann, with the Dagda portrayed as a father figure, king and druid. He is associated with fertility, agriculture, manliness and strength, as well as magic, druidry and wisdom. He can control life and death, the weather and crops, as well as time and the seasons. He is often described as a large bearded man or giant wearing a hooded cloak. He owns a magic staff of dual nature. It kills with one end and brings to life with the other. He also owns a cauldron which never runs empty, and a magic harp that will not play unless called by its two bynames, and the harp can fly itself to the Dagda when thus beckoned. He is said to dwell in Brunaboyne, also known as Newgrange. Other places associated with or named after him include Uisneach, Griannan of Ailech, Loch Nee and Knock Ivar. The Dagda is said to be the husband of the Morrigan and lover of Boann. His children include Angus, Bridget, Bodbderg, Sermate, Aed and Midir. The Dagda's name is thought to mean the good god or the great god. His other names include Eochu or Eoked Olathair, which translates to horseman, great father, and Ruad Rofessa, meaning mighty one or lord of great knowledge. There are indications that Dare was another name for him. The death and ancestral god, Don, may originally have been a form of the Dagda, and he also has similarities with the later harvest figure Crom Dubh. Several tribal groupings saw the Dagda as an ancestor and were named after him, such as the Uiechach and the Dereen. The Dagda has been likened to the Germanic god Odin, the Gaulish god Suchellos, and the Roman god Dispater. The Old Irish name Dagda is generally believed to stem from Proto-Celtic Dagodewos, meaning the good god or the great god. Epithets. The Dagda has several other names or epithets which reflect aspects of his character. Eochu or Eoked Olathair, meaning horseman, great father or horseman, all-father. Ruad Rofessa, which translates to mighty one or lord of great knowledge. Dare, known as the fertile one. Aed, the fiery one. Fair Ben, which means horned man or man of the peak. Sera, possibly meaning creator, and Circe, possibly meaning striker. Other names include Easel and Yogabal. The name Eochu is a diminutive form of Eoked, which also has spelling variants of Eoked and Ecuid. The death and ancestral god Don may originally have been a form of the Dagda, who is sometimes called Dagda Don. The Dagda was one of the kings of the Tuatha De Danann. The Tuatha De Danann are the race of supernatural beings who conquered the Fomorians, who inhabited Ireland previously, prior to the coming of the Milesians. The Morrigan is described as his wife, his daughter was Bridget, and his lover was Boann, after whom the River Boyne is named, though she was married to Elkmar and with whom he had the god Engus. Prior to the battle with the Fomorians, he coupled with the goddess of war, the Morrigan, on Samhain. Of Dagda it is stated, he was a beautiful god of the heathens, for the Tuatha De Danann worshipped him. For he was an earth god to them because of the greatness of his magical power, in the Middle Irish language, Coa Anma, also known as the fitness of names. Tales depict the Dagda as a figure of immense power. He is said to own a magic staff, club or mace, which could kill 9 men with one blow. But with the handle, he could return the slain to life. He owned a magic harp, Dagda's staff. In the tract found in the Yellow Book of Lecan, there were 3 items the Dagda named together. His staff, or lork, the shirt of protection from sickness, known as lena, and the cloak of shape-shifting and colour change called lumen. The great staff, or lorg mor, had a smooth end which brought the dead back to life. He resuscitated his son, Sermet Milbel, with the smooth end. However, the staff's rough end caused instant death. The staff or club is also described in the Ulster cycle narrative Mesca Ulad, where it was called the Terrible Iron Staff, or Log Aduat Mar Iarnaidi. The cauldron of the Dagda is one of the 4 treasures of the Tuatha De Danann, of which it was said an assembly used not to go unsatisfied from it. The cauldron signified plenty and generosity. Hence his magic cauldron was otherwise known as the Coir Ansik, or the undry cauldron. Dagda's harp, also known as Weithna, has quite the fascinating story. After Weithna, the Dagda's harper, was abducted by the Fomorians, the Dagda went to the enemy's hall and retrieved his magic harp. The harp had 2 names according to the text of the Cathmaige Tuired, or the Second Battle of Moytura. When the Dagda called upon his harp by its 2 names, come Daur de Blau, come Coir Cletharke, come summer, come winter, the harp leapt off the wall and came to him. The harp was forbidden by the Dagda from issuing any sound unless called upon by these names, which translate to Oak of 2 Meadows and the 4-angled music. This richly ornamented magic harp made of oak, when played by the Dagda, put the seasons in their correct order. The Dagda had the skill to play the 3 strains, joy, sorrow and sleep, which he used to immobilize the Fomorians and make his escape. Other possessions: he possessed 2 pigs, one of which was always growing whilst the other was always roasting, and ever-laden fruit trees. He is also described as being the owner of a black-maned heifer that was given to him for his labours prior to the Second Battle of Moytura, when the heifer calls her calf all the cattle of Ireland taken by the Fomorians as tribute graze. Family: the Dagda is said to be husband of the Morrigan, who is called his envious wife. His children include Angus, Sermet, Aed, often called the 3 sons of the Dagda, Bridget and Bodbderg. He is said to have 2 brothers, Nuada and Ogma, but this may be an instance of the tendency to triplicate deities. Elsewhere, the Dagda is linked exclusively with Ogma, and the 2 are called the 2 brothers. In the Dinsentures, the Dagda is given a daughter named Ainge, for whom he makes a twig basket or tub that always leaks when the tide is in and never leaks when it is going out. The Dagda's father is named Elatha, son of Delbeath. Englec, the daughter of Elkmar, is named as a consort of the Dagda and the mother of his swift son. Echtgi the Loathsome is another daughter of the Dagdas named in the Banshintures. Mythology: the rising sun illuminates the inner chamber of Newgrange only at the winter solstice. Before the Second Battle of Mag Tuared, the Dagda builds a fortress for Bress called Dunbrese, and is also forced by the Fomorian kings Elatha, Indech and Tethra to build raths. In the lead-up to the Second Battle of Mag Tuired, when Lugh asks Dagda what power he will wield over the Fomorian host, he responds that he will take the side of the men of Erin both in mutual smiting and destruction and wizardry. The rising sun illuminates the inner chamber of Newgrange only at the winter solstice. Before the Second Battle of Mag Tuired, the Dagda builds a fortress for Bress called Dunbrese, and is also forced by the Fomorian kings Elatha, Indech and Tethra to build raths. In the lead-up to the Second Battle of Mag Tuired, when Lugh asks Dagda what power he will wield over the Fomorian host, he responds that he will take the side of the men of Erin both in mutual smiting and destruction and wizardry. Their bones under my club will be as many as hailstones under feet of herds of horses. The Dagda has an affair with Boann, the goddess of the river Boyne. She lives at Bruna Boyne with her husband Elkmar. The Dagda impregnates her after sending Elkmar away on a one-day errand. To hide the pregnancy from Elkmar, the Dagda casts a spell on him, making the sun stand still so he will not notice the passing of time. Meanwhile, Boann gives birth to Angus, who is also known as Macon Og, the young son. Eventually, Angus learns that the Dagda is his true father and asks him for a portion of land. In some versions of the tale, the Dagda helps Angus take ownership of the brew from Elkmar. Angus asks and is given the brew for Elar Ocus Aegir, because in Old Irish this could mean either a day and a night or day and night. Angus claims it forever. Other versions have Angus taking over the brew from the Dagda himself by using the same trick. It has been suggested that this tale represents the winter solstice illumination of Newgrange at Brú na Bwan, during which the sunbeam, the Dagda, enters the inner chamber, the womb of Bowen, when the sun's path stands still. The word solstice in Irish Grianstad means sun stands still. The conception of Angus may represent the rebirth of the sun at the winter solstice, with him taking over the brew from an older god, representing the growing sun taking over from the waning sun. The Tochmach Etain tells the story of how Bowen conceives Angus by the Dagda. In the Aislingo Inguso, or Dream of Angus, the Dagda and Bowen help Angus to find a mysterious woman who he has fallen in love with in his dreams. In a poem about Mag Murthemne, the Dagda banishes an octopus with his mace of wrath, using the following words: "Turn thy hollow head, turn thy ravening body, turn thy resorbent forehead, avaunt, begone!" The sea receded with the creature, and the plain of Mag Murthemne was left behind. In the Dinsenchus, the Dagda is described as swift with a poison draught and as a justly dealing lord. He is also called a king of Erin with hosts of hostages, a noble, slender prince, and the father of Sir Mate Angus and Aed. He is credited with a 70 or 80-year reign, depending on the source, over the Tuatha De Danann before dying at Brú na Bwan, finally succumbing to a wound inflicted by Sethlen during the Battle of Mag Tuired.